Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Divergent Dialogues. This episode is episode 20, and this is another episode in our co occurrence series, and it's Hyperphantasia with Rebecca Vitzman. So, thank you, Rebecca, for joining us today. We're really excited to have you with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I'll just introduce Rebecca. So Rebecca Vitzman is a unique voice hoping to advocate for her community and spread positive awareness of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, EDS, hyperphantasia, autism, and other invisible disabilities. Rebecca has authored Eliza D's Universes, which is an uplifting and adventurous tale that can help parents and children alike to embrace their unique traits and creatively visualize disabilities in a new and beautiful way. As an autistic mother with neurodivergent children, Rebecca was inspired by her personal experiences to provide an accessible story that inspires creative imagination in readers of all ages and backgrounds. Yes, and I think in the background there's your book. Yes.
Yes, right here. Yeah, that's it. If I move it, the lighting will destroy it.
Oh, that's all good. Yeah, that's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks for meeting with us today. So it'd be great to like obviously we have a little bit of an idea of what inspired your book, but yeah, get to know a little bit about that and I guess that journey.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So the idea for the book started, what I actually wrote on started far back than the book itself. So I'll start with the book. I was sitting on the couch with my then 14-year-old stepdaughter, and we were talking about college because it's kind of like COVID times. She's 16 now, 17, newly 17 this past week. So but at the time 14, and we're like, okay, yeah, college. And I was like, oh, I have a degree. Yeah, it's like in humanities, which is like writing. And she's like, oh, I've never read anything you've written. And I was like, oh no. I felt so bad. I was like, none of my kids have, right? I'm a failure as a parent. I'm a failure as a writer, right? Like that's the instant thought. And I was like, well, most of the stuff I've written is for adults, but you don't want to read a paper on collectivism versus individualism, right? And she's like, no, yeah, I don't want to do that. Right. So
I
was
would
like,
like to
I'll
read
write
that.
something for y'all.
Yeah, I would also
You know
read
what I
that.
mean? Right. Right. That was 2005. I wrote that. Right. And so I'm like, yay, it was my shining achievement of my college career. Right. And she was like, eh. So I was like, I'm going to write something for my kids. And I knew right away exactly the subject matter because I've written about the same idea dozens of times, like maybe like 50 times. It's just some absurd number of times. And it's always like these little poems that change, or it's a paragraph, or it's a painting, or right. It's always something having to do with this thought I had in 2007. So in 2007, I was reading a lot. I had graduated in 2005 with my humanities degree. I was still like reading all the time, different cultures. And I had just read the Rubaiyat and the Prophet. And so my head was just kind of swirling, and I was laying down on some grass it was a park. And I had a break. This is a lot of details, but it'll get there.
It's okay.
There's a soccer tournament, and I was working taking pictures, but there was a lull in the game. So I was like, I'm just going to go rest. And so I laid down with my hood over my head. Now, at that time, I did not know I was hyperphantasic. But what happened to me, and what happens with hyperphantasic people is whenever your eyes are closed, like your ability to see goes astronomically high, right? And so I was sitting there and I was like, oh, I'm just going to lay on this grass, hang out with my thoughts, right? And then I was like, oh, I should think about the furthest point in the universe. I should just go there, right? And in my head, I traveled to the furthest point in the universe. I found the one that was like X by Z by all the variables, went the farthest. And I was like, there it is. I found it. And then I was like, fill in the entire universe with light and color and noise. And it just went in my brain, right? Just this huge explosion of color and light and noise and everything. And I was like, wow, right in my head. And then I hear a kid's voice go, should we kick her? And that's when I was like, I got up. I was like, no, I'm okay. I'm okay. And I got up and left because I was like, oh gosh, I'm working right now. That probably looked super weird because I was just laying on the grass with my hood over my head. Right. And then I went away. But from that moment, I was so affected by the thought of this like explosion of color or whatever, that I just started writing about explosions of color, or a girl who is connected to all the points, or right. There's been stories and love songs and poetry and paintings and nonsense, right? That I've made over the years. And whenever my child was like, I've never read anything you've written, I'm like, I will write it on the thing, the thing that I love, right? And so I set out to do it, and that's Eliza D's Universes.
Excellent. That's so good. I
Yeah.
love your energy. I feel like it really matches mine and Tina's energy. um, yeah, so I'd really love to know a bit more about hyperphantasia, because like for a lot of my autistic clients, they have like hypophantasia where they struggle to like hold images or visualize in their mind.
Aphantasia. That one's
Oh, sorry,
aphantasia.
aphantasia. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, my bad. Yeah, I was like, I'm like, what's the opposite of hyper? I'm like hypo, so it must be hypophantasia. But yeah, so aphantasia, my bad. But yeah, so I guess I've never really, I don't think any of my clients have really described that experience. But it's really funny though, because sorry, my cat's here. As I was looking into hyperphantasia, because I'm like, oh, what is this? I don't know what it is. I think I actually what was it, hyperphantasia, yeah.
Yeah.
I because I have the exact same thing where like when I go to sleep and I close my eyes, I have all these really detailed visualizations of like random stuff. It's
I
really
know, right? Yeah, it's so random, and it can just be flashing and like connecting all these points together, right? And it's so annoying at times. Like it's like a blessing and a curse, kind of experience for sure. Yeah. Sorry for interrupting. I just like, yeah,
oh
whenever you lay
no,
down and go to
that's
sleep,
good.
how annoying is that?
Yeah, so I guess so I guess for me it was just a very new, I guess, language for something that I experienced. But I guess how did you come to know about hyperphantasia, and like what was that journey for you?
Yeah, it started with me, and this is how a lot of my diagnoses came about. I just started writing down stuff I experienced, right? Just like write a bunch of it. Like I and trying to figure it out and Googling and Googling and Googling. And then one day hyperphantasia comes up and I'm like, wait, what is this? Right. And then I start looking and I'm like, it's me, yay. Right. And it was the thing I was looking for at that very second, because it's just like, what is it whenever you like have all these memories and they're super detailed, and like, and then you can project the future, and it's, like it's whatever you imagine, like what is that? And then that's how I came about finding it, because that's what I do, right? And I can project. Whenever I'm listening to somebody, I almost do better if I have paper so that I can write down what's going on, so, like key points as we're going along, because I'm trying to picture what they say as it's coming in. Because if I can't develop a picture, I don't know what anyone's talking about, and so I'll lose. Or if I go accidentally skirting off in the wrong direction, like somebody says a word and then my brain goes, explosion of visualizations of stuff that's not related, and you no longer hear what people are saying, and then you have to be like, hold on, sorry, I went a wrong direction when you said the word chair. Could you start back at chair, please? It's not usually chair, but it's something that just, I go darting off and I'm like, I'm so sorry, I wasn't trying to not listen. We were right here. And so, but the hyperphantasia, like what it is, what they say it is, what I read is like the test is, they say like close your eyes and then you're gonna visualize an apple, right? And I think it's better to do it whenever you're like alone and it's not my voice who's telling you what to do or whatever. I'm not going to try to create this visualization for you. But what you do is whenever you're alone, try to picture an apple, and then, does your apple have color? If you zoom in, does it have like spots on the apple, or like if you cut it, I'm like sitting here visualizing it while I'm doing it. But like if you cut it, does it glisten? Does it have like any distinctions in there? Can you like observe this apple? And for me, I was just now at my table downstairs holding an apple, and I had a cutting board, and I had the knife that's down there, and I'm looking at my apple, right? So it would be somebody who has these visualizations that have the ability to zoom, right? But it's just imagination, right? Because I don't actually have an apple. I'm not processing myself as having an apple. I don't believe I have an apple. Instead, I believe that I'm imagining an apple, right? But the way that I interact with it, it's like it's there.
Okay.
And so, like, I'll have a lot of illustrators whenever I'm talking because I'm like visualizing all this stuff in front of me, right? And I'll pull it from different directions. Like, I've noticed, like, if I'm, talking about the stuff like that I've experienced and stuff, it's over here. If it's other people, it's usually like right here, right? And so, like, I'm, interacting with these, like, I could describe them as I went along because they look away. Yeah. So hyperphantasic people are able to zoom in, and what this ends up happening, the symptoms that come out are you have extremely detailed memory, just fantastic autobiographical memory. Whenever you're talking about it, you are like talking about, you got all these details that people generally, they don't have that level of recall. And then also the ability to project to the future. So be that like scientifically, like hypotheses or theories, or just fiction, just creating something. It's just like, if this, then bang, I created this thing, because you can visualize all these details and write them out. And so people generally will end up higher on the ability scale to do those things.
Yeah, that's so interesting because, yeah, sorry, I feel like I'm like parallel processing here in, in this episode. But yeah, it's really interesting. And yeah, sorry, Tina, I'll give you some space to chat as well.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like, oh, thanks. But it's, yeah, I guess for me, oh, like, yeah, so I have just so many thoughts coming up in my mind. So like, I guess autistic people are often like, there's this thing around, autistic people take things literally. And I actually realized the reason that I take things literally sometimes is because when someone says something, I get an image in my mind instantly. I get this image, and then like that's my brain's initial reaction. And then I have to like go, okay, this is the image, this is what my automatic thought or whatever my automatic internal experience is. But then I have to go out and go, okay, well, what's the context of this conversation? And yeah, so like I have that kind of experience. But also, yeah, like I like, again, like when I go back or forward, there's like a very detailed image. And like when I was in university, I would, well, as an ADHDer, I would do things very last minute, but I have a really good memory for if I read something, if I have to talk to it, it's a lot harder. But if I'm in a test and I read something and I have to write answers, it's like I'm reading it in the book. Like I can just remember like that, and it's a visual. It's not like
that was another one too, is that hyperphantasic people will be the type of people who read a book and they have the whole world building, and they'll get like disappointed, like when they see the movie, they're like, oh, that's nothing like what I pictured. Because you have this like very big visualization going on, and it's like, oh, how dare they ruin it.
So Tina, I'm really curious, like, do you have any of these experiences? I don't think it's anything we've ever really talked about.
Yeah, no, it's not really, is it? I do to a degree, but I don't think I experience things to that level. Sometimes I find it quite difficult to conjure up visualizations when people are describing things to me. But I think that's more because they're wanting, like, they're trying to share their imagery, and it's like, no, my brain isn't interested in your imagery because it's created its own. But definitely reading the book and then watching the movie and feeling really irritated because they didn't do it right. You know, even with the way the characters look and things like that, it's like, no, that's not how this happens. And
yeah, I have that same problem too, though, with other people's imagery. Like when I was a kid, I thought that I had no imagination, but it's so funny whenever I look back and think about what was going on for me, because I was never, I was constantly in my head. But whenever other people would be like, let's fight this dragon with our imaginary swords, and that wasn't something that I did, I'd just be like, I am standing in grass and there's a tree right there, and I can't imagine your dumb sword, but I don't know what to, right? Like, right? I just be such a, like, I guess I'm not really good at pretending, which is so ridiculous in retrospect, right? Because I was constantly doing my own thing. But like whenever other people would be like, let's do my game, I'd be like, I don't know how to do it, and I don't know the rules, and your game is stupid. Like, right? I don't want to say it like that, but as a kid, you know, that's reality, is how I thought about it.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, like, if I have like D&D though, and there's like a gifted storyteller and they're like doing it, oh my gosh, I'm in my head, I'm on that path, there's this, you know, wind god, and I am doing this, and I have my squirrel on my shoulder, right? Like I am fully there, as long as it's like gifted storytelling and not like, let's fight this monster, what does he look like, I don't know, okay, well then we're not fighting anything but the air. You know, it's
I'm really curious. So for me, when I have these visualizations, I also experience other like sensory experiences. So for example, like if I, sorry, my cat's pulling. If I like imagine myself at a beach, like, well, I can't do it now, like, because I kind of do need to be alone or quiet. Like if I close my eyes and I visualize a beach, it's like I can hear the beach, I can feel the sand on my feet, I can like smell the, you know, the salt in the air. Like it's not just the visual, like I actually get the other sensory kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's actually considered a really good thing for people who have hyperphantasia. My therapist uses it with me, like these visualizations, these calming ones, to give me like a place where I can go to relax, because I can go to this place in my head and it's got those features. It's just my back deck. I love my back deck, but I can at any point in time go and just like relax in a chair that doesn't exist, because it's the most comfortable chair that's ever existed, that I don't own, right? You know, with perfect temperature, and the sun is not going to burn me or anything. It's just night, right? Everything is so perfect and pleasant, and I just relax in my chair no matter where I am, right? Because I can visualize that, and it's a powerful tool for calming and for practice.
And I think that's a really important thing to bring up, because as I mentioned, with some of my clients, they have aphantasia, and some of those mindfulness practices that do have those visualizations can be a big struggle. But I guess, you know, it's important to consider that. And I think there's been a bit of a rhetoric around that. And I guess I just want to challenge, like, yes, there's definitely, I have clients myself that would, that have expressed challenges with that. But we've got to consider that perhaps there are folks that are, you know, are hyperphantagic and would really get a lot of benefit out of that, and really enjoy that experience, and be able to use those visualizations to calm themselves. Because that's something that I definitely use for myself, and I find it really helpful.
Another thing too with hyperphantasia, you do get a lot of anxiety, because if you have a distressing image that you can't get to go away, that can happen a lot. And like, there's a lot of tools that I've had to build over the years to get to the point where I understand that the vast majority of my projections are nonsense and will never happen, or I won't be here when they happen, or there's a million things that'll go differently than I think, or whatever, right? And that helps me have a better projection of the future, because usually it's just like, but you could all day and none of those things would happen, so might as well just kind of relax.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you bring that up, because when I was younger, I would, because they're so real and it's so vivid, and I wish I had the artistic ability to be able to put what's in here out here. I don't know, maybe that's something I can work on, but my fine motor that's a bit of a struggle for me. But
I hired an artist to do it for me, right? Because I found somebody who had going on, right, her like samples. I was like, she can do it.
Yeah, maybe I should outsource it. But yeah, so I think, oh gosh, I lost my thought. What was I talking
I'm so
about?
sorry.
That's all good. No. What was the
You're saying that when you were younger, that like the really vivid.
Yes. I'm good. All right, cool. Yeah, so yeah, when I was younger, and I think things are shifting now, but like everything that's out of the ordinary is pathologized. And you go, oh my gosh, I'm having all these visualizations, like, this must be a mental illness, or there must be something wrong with me. And also because, yeah, they're so vivid, it feels real. And I would get like, I'd make up these like imaginary stories in my mind, and I would get like upset by them.
I did too. I still do it. I did it like a week ago. I was crying last week, weeping, like just infinite tears, right? I was in this like throes of sadness because I had imagined that there was a pod with a girl in it that was like she was supposed to be a first contact, and they flung her off into space in this pod with this AI program that was running with her like a daily program or whatever, right? And in her mind only, her body was put to sleep, right? And so 7.4 years later, the pod started to crack open, and the AI knew that they were having their last moments together, but it was kind of like an all systems fail. And the girl started to kind of wake up right whenever she could see like the cracking window. And then the AI had made her favorite food for the last moments or whatever. And I'm like sitting here and I'm like, the AI knew. And so now I'm the AI. I've loved this little girl for 7.4 million years, and I made her food, and she opened her eyes, and I'm broken. And then we all die and it's fine. But like, right? But I'm like, crying, just like, oh no, I've loved her forever.
Because, it feels very real,
right? Because my brain does that, and I get all emotional. Like, I can cry as a 7.4 million year old AI.
But yeah, I guess what's important to highlight here from like a diagnostic / mental health / pathologization perspective is that something is only a problem if it's a problem. Like if you're being distressed by it, but also if you are hyperphantagic and you're having visualizations and some of them are distressing, I think sometimes people think, oh, well, I'm having these visualizations, so I must be a bad person because of the particular content. And it's like, no. And I find that sometimes like it's a way for, like, I process my emotions very much through my senses. So like through music and through these visualizations. And sometimes it's just like, for me, it's just like a representation of an emotion or something like that, but it's not like something that I'm trying to think of an example, like like for some of my clients, I actually have one particular client, and he's struggled with PTSD, and he has quite vivid visualizations around harming other people, but that's completely not to his core. That is not the kind of person that he is. But it's kind of like, well, I'm having this visualization, so I must be a bad person, and this must be who I am. So yeah, just kind of being a bit more objective and taking a step back from some of those visualizations can be helpful, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
I like to tell people, like my clients who struggle with those sort of visualizations that are of the not fun and whimsical kind, that because people they interpret that as they must be bad because they're coming up with all these thoughts. And I like to point out that no one sees Stephen King as a bad person, or the people that wrote the movies Jigsaw. No one sees them as bad people. They see them as creative and incredibly wealthy because of their creativity. They took what their mind was coming up with, wrote it down, turned it into a movie that bucket loads of people pay money to see, and no one thinks they're bad people for wanting to go and watch this sort of thing, let alone the people that wrote the movie who thought about it first. So I think that pointing out that this stuff happens and it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay definitely. As long as you capitalize on it.
Well, and then so too, though, it's okay, especially what I end up doing with mine is, you know, like if I get a distressing thought, then I want to ground myself, right? I have art and colors all over my house, because whenever I have a thought that comes in and it distresses me, I flap it, because flapping helps, because it like muddies the picture. And so every time like I start, I'm like, okay, I gotta muddy the picture. What am I supposed to do now? You remember its colors. Okay, I see blue, right? And I get my frontal lobe re-engaged by, you know, seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, right? The feeling the weight of my body, feeling the temperature in my hands, those kinds of things to help me ground myself from things that are distressing. But whenever I'm writing, like that's absolute consent. Like if I'm crying from my writing, then I'm writing well.
Yeah,
because right, it depends. Like I can utilize it as a talent where like I'm crying, but I'm happy crying because I'm like, it's so beautiful, I wrote something so beautiful, right? And that's different from like because I have PTSD from various things, and sometimes, you know, like a trauma thought will show up, like usually about right here. For whatever reason, my trauma thoughts like to enter stage right, and then I'll hit it. Like I'll just go like, get out of here, right? Like I flicked exactly them away.
And that's what I tell my clients is that, you know, like you might be having these visualizations, but you don't have to be a passive participant to this experience. Like you can, you know, even with thoughts as well, like I'll be like, oh, you know, can we turn it into a funny voice, or can we give it a, you know, like a nickname? It's similar with these visualizations, is that, you know, maybe it's about trying to empower yourself within that visualization to just be like, boop, see you later.
Yeah. I love how, like discovering that the day that I found out that was even possible was such an empowering day. Like the first time I flicked it and I was like, oh, it's gone. Yeah. Yay. You know, the flapping for the happy reasons is right? Like not the get out of here, it's the yay ones. Right. But since then, yeah, I've done it a lot more times where I have stuff come in and I'm like, get out of here. Of course, sometimes I find myself trapped in a moment, especially if change, right? I'm autistic and something happens and then it doesn't meet expectation. Well, let's say that it severely doesn't meet expectation and things are going wrong. And I start projecting like, right? A lot of times my ahs are way bigger than the situation, or I haven't even confirmed yet. A lot of times it was I misheard or misunderstood something and I thought, no. And it's like, no, you just do this and then it's actually fine. And it's, right. Right. Like if only I could be saved by my own, like whatever it is. But I just roll with it. I got a deal.
Yeah, I might do a little bit of a shift in topic, because I'd like for Tina to feel included a little bit more. Sorry, Tina.
It's okay.
So I thought we could talk a little bit about like neurodivergent parenting, because yeah, I don't have kids, but both of you do. So I thought, yeah, that might be a bit of a, and well, I mean, I'll be curious, like do your children have these similar experiences as well with the hyperphantasia?
Mine?
Yes, sorry.
So right now one sometimes does and has a lot in the past, and so I'm not sure which direction that'll go, but one does. I have 3 stepchildren and then I have a 3-year-old. And so I'm not sure what's going on with the 3-year-old. He said his first word at 4 months. And so there's a reason to believe that he's on the autistic spectrum. Like my autism doctor wants me to get him assessed because, you know, he's like reading and can do addition and subtraction and, you know, at 3.
Wow.
So, right.
Well, perhaps
he can actually fix electronics better than my 12-year-old, right? Like the other day, my kid was like, "Oh, I need help with the VR headset." I was like, "I'm sure Cade can do it." And then my 3-year-old went and helped him and fixed it. And then another time our screen wasn't working, and we were like, "No, what's happening? The screen's not working." And then the 3-year-old was like, "That's because this has to be changed." And then he fixed it, and it's like, okay,
wow.
alrighty.
Perhaps he's gifted.
Yeah, and I was in the gifted program, so was his dad.
Oh, okay, well, there you go.
Yeah, wow. That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So neurodivergent parenting, what's that like?
Oh, it is. There's a lot going on because I have other neurodivergencies, and all the children have their own things. They all have their own needs. They all have like doctors and stuff like that. And so honestly, it used to be scary at the very beginning. It was scary because like before I was understanding what was going on with myself, I was projecting like, oh my gosh, if this happens when they're 2, what does that mean when they're 40? Right? Like it started off with like lots of panic. And then, now we've gotten to the point where like I'm very relaxed about it. I feel like, if something comes up, we'll tackle it. We'll find the resources, we'll figure it out. I feel very empowered, and also I feel like that relaxes them. They seem to be having good lives. They look happy with what's going on. They feel supported. And, if they have something come up, they just come to me and, or their dad, and, and at their other houses, they go to their other parents, but they know that they're supported by their family. And, so they actively talk about their symptoms or whatever's bothering them or whatever. And then if there's tools, then we utilize them. If there's, anything that could help the situation, or if it's right, we're navigating life, and I feel good about it, which is nice.
Yeah, I think that fear-based parenting that we tend to fall into sometimes, for that, like, oh, I've got to prepare these children to be this thing that society says is a good human and indicates good parenting. It can really cause everything to go off track. And yeah, when you bring it back into what's happening for everyone today, and trusting that your kids, neurodivergent or otherwise, are going to they're going to pursue the things that they love and that they're interested in when they've got this really supportive and understanding environment that allows them to manage the things that are difficult and pursue the things that are great. It really helps balance it all out.
Yeah, I agree. Also, we do a lot of focus on what you're good at, like back before I really realized like I should be spending my time on like writing this book was the beginning of like I am a writer. I got a degree. That's what I'm best at. That's what I'm good at, and I am talented in that area. And I'm since then been spending a lot more time writing, which is lovely. But also for my children, like, yeah, we need resources for this thing. Like, some kid who's really, really good at like the stuff inside his head isn't going to be a basketball player, and that's fine. Like we don't need him to be a basketball player. It's who are you? You let me know, and I'll support you to grow up to be, whatever suits you. And they all have their things. They all have their strong suits and the stuff they pursue and the stuff they enjoy. And yeah, I just think it's nice. And also I as a neurodivergent parent, I feel like like I hate to say lowered the bar. That sounds but I did though, because right, I'm like, you don't need to be perfect, which I think no one needs to be perfect. We're literally humans. And so to pretend that we could even achieve perfection would be ridiculous, right? But like definitely there's like, today was a hard day, tomorrow will be different, right? Maybe. Right.
I think it's I always find it a bit weird when like your kids get their report cards, and it's like they're doing all right, sitting average, but their math scores are just sort of at that real maybe average, below average type place, and English and science, whatever it's tracking well. So let's put all of our energy into maths. And I think that, well, you're doing well enough to survive in life, and you know how to operate a calculator and all that kind of stuff. So why do you need to be doing better at maths when your brain is clearly geared towards that creativity of the arts or sport? Like, why not put that energy into something that you're really interested in and you're already showing natural talent in? Because you could maybe be the best of the best, or, you know, not, but still just have a really fun, enjoyable life, rather than, no, you can't be doing these things that you're good at much anymore because you need to be putting more time into this thing that you're not so great at. Why go for mediocrity across the board when you can have brilliance and, you know, capable?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the direction I went with it too, right? Because definitely, you know, like if a kid is getting all A's and that's just the way that they are, then that's just the way they are, great, whatever. But if they're getting, like, you know, barely passing, they passed.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
Right? Like if they're below it, okay, let's work on that so that we can get it so that you can function in life, you know,
Yep.
going out there and doing your taxes or whatever. In America, that's how it be. Like, but right, I don't feel like taking somebody and saying, let's unmake you.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a
Instead,
lovely
like,
way of
no,
putting
I'm
it.
here to support you.
Yeah.
It's not unmake you. Can you unpack that a little bit, what you mean by that? Because I think that's a really...
Well, right. My children have natural talents and they have natural places where they struggle. And I'm not trying to go and make them into somebody they're not. And I feel like if you took away their natural talents and replaced it with the stuff that they're struggling with, where you're just dragging them along and they're like, the entire way, like, what kind of life is that? It's not the one that I want for my kids who are like, yay, I passed math or whatever, right? Like whatever it would be. You know, I don't want to give away what my kids are or whatever, because they're all their individual things and they all have the way that they be. But like in the end, I want them to go and like do their passionate thing where they're like, yes, all my time and energy, this is all I want to do with my life. Great, because that's what you're going to end up as your job. Yes, right. And so yeah, definitely put all your time into what you're awesome at, and then let's just make sure that this is like passing.
Yeah.
Right, you have the resource to get past like it being really hard or whatever, and you know, you're yay, hooray.
Yeah. And I think that if you put more of your time and energy into that thing that you love and the thing that you're good at, then you are going to get better at that thing, and it will likely end up being your job and the way you earn money. And the more time, the more energy, the more passion you put into it, then the more successful you're going to be. And then you can just pay someone to help with the stuff that you're not so great at. You know, like
that's what I did for the books, right? Like I can imagine this stuff, no problem. My imagination is great to do the art. Like I am an artist. I made this painting, and so I am an artist. But to be able to do that, it would have taken me a decade. Why am I going to do that? I don't need to be every job. I can do my job. I am a writer. I'm good at that. I'll do the writing, and then I also am a picturer, I guess. And that can be my job too. I'm a picturer for somebody with an art style who's looking to use it too, right? Because this artist was looking for work and I could provide work.
Maybe I need to find an artist to paint all these things in my mind. I don't know.
I think that would be amazing. I want to see more art in the world. So
yeah,
yes,
I love art.
The cat's making a guest appearance. Yeah, so I thought I'm also curious. So just, oh gosh, move out of the way, please. I as I said before, I'm not a parent, but I was once a child, and I was once a child in school, and yes, I'm actually gifted as well. So yeah, so that, yeah, I guess that was an interesting point of connection there as well. But although you know, I'm gifted in some areas, like for me, sport, was something that I really struggled with. And I'm not sure what it's like in America, but in Australia, particularly the school that I was in, like sport is really big. Like
it is really big, yeah.
Yeah, and you have to be good at it. And if you're not, like it's kind of linked with popularity as well. Like if you're in like the sporty kids, then you're kind of more popular and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, and you know, I guess it's really hard when you're just naturally really uncoordinated. And you know, and I think like looking back now, I think it definitely is related to like autism and probably low tone, and also like I have hypermobility as well. And yeah, it does a lot to your self-esteem. Luckily my parents, they weren't that, you know, concerned about it. Like I'll be honest, I was probably you know, pulled a few sickies on some of those sports days and things like that. But it was really, yeah, it was really frowned upon. So I guess that's my little segue into like EDS and like hypermobility, because I'm really, yeah, curious to know a bit about that, because yeah, I have quite a few clients that like have hypermobility or have EDS. Like I actually went to get an assessment for EDS because of my hypermobility, but they were like, nope, you don't have EDS, but yeah, definitely have the hypermobility. So yeah, really curious to hear about that.
Yeah, and so while you don't have EDS, hypermobility does show up in other genetic disorders, and I know like hypermobility spectrum disorder. You know, you struggle with the same stuff, but it's like a different placement on the genes or something like that. And so what'll end up happening though, and this there's a study that came out in 2020 that was about how they believe now that connective tissue disorders are going to end up being a subtype of autism, where they believe that the way that connective tissue affects brain development um, uh, results in a type of autism. And so just throwing that out there, 2020, I actually have that on my website inside of the Liza D's Universe's educational materials. I have a link to the actual study. But yeah, for hypermobility,
I said that's really interesting. Yeah, I haven't heard of that, so I'll definitely be checking out.
Yeah, and I put it in the section that's like on how the relationship between her conditions. And so inside of there, if you go, you'll be able to see the link between ASD and EDS, but also all connective tissue disorders. Right. So with the hypermobility, like as a child, what it looks like is you start off life kind of as a contortionist, and you don't feel what's going on. Like I have a significant impairment in interoception. That's the ability to feel hunger, pain, thirst, tired, you know, all of these things, like they're just not there. Or they've become slowly there as I've desperately tried to build it in my 30s and 40s. But before that point, there's just like whatever was going on in my head. But because I couldn't feel my body, I was not aware I was damaging my joints. I was damaging them. I just could not feel it. And that is a symptom of EDS, is that you engage in these types of, like they call them party tricks. I would bend myself into pretzels and baskets and like take my glasses off with my feet from behind. And I'm like, watch what I can do, right? Like I can do all the contortion stuff that are in those little kid magazines or whatever, right? I'm like, check it out. But I was damaging my body the whole time. So usually what happens is contortionism as a child, then you end up starting to feel pain, kind of like in your second decade of life, moving into the third, and then you have a lot of injuries in your 30s, and by your 50s you're pretty stiff. Not looking forward to that, but okay. You know, like I'm hoping that like as they develop things, because they're developing things all the time that help, but yeah, the thing that it looks like though is this hypermobility as a child. And so having people understand that even though it doesn't hurt, it's still dangerous, was a big factor. Whenever I made the book, the last page of the book, the last page within the writing besides bios, goes over language that I talked to the Norris Lab. They're the leading HEDS researchers on the planet. And I was like, if you needed to say like a message, what do you need to get out there to the world? And then they were like, you know, it's about these party tricks. They're dangerous and they can cause long-term complications. And so if we could, as a population, as a culture, as a planet, stop encouraging hypermobility party tricks as entertainment, that would help those entertainers, because people don't know. And unfortunately, it's very painful later.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with my uncoordinated self, I probably wasn't really into the party tricks type stuff. I was as I said, I wasn't particularly athletic, and I wasn't I wasn't doing the cartwheels and the handstands and all that kind of thing. But yeah, I agree though, like in going into my 30s now, that now I'm starting to experience a lot of those pains and things like that, and yeah, challenges with that interoception as well. But through like I have an amazing PT who's really helped me to be a bit more connected with my body and like build up my strength and things like that. But something also that I've experienced is that as you get older, like in some areas I'm really flexible, but in other areas I'm really inflexible because there's been this compensation. So for example, like in my calves are really, really tight. And it's probably like I probably do maybe a little bit of the toe walking type stuff as well, unintentionally. But that's the thing, like when sometimes people go to like a doctor to be like, oh, I'm hypermobile. And they're like, oh, well, no, like you're tight here and you're tight there and whatever. But like you really need to go see someone who's a specialist that has a really good understanding of how it manifests in children and adolescents and adults, because it's going to look different as you progress.
Absolutely. There's definitely like the 2017 criteria from you can get it at Ehlers-Danlos, it's a Ehlers-Danlos Society's website. They have like multiple dislocations as one of the criteria, which that doesn't happen when you're little. They're catching the parents, right? And so yeah, it definitely looks different. My skin is a giveaway. Like my doctors, usually when I have a new doctor, because I always have a new specialist, because EDS is in your connective tissue, so it's your skin, it surrounds every organ, it's 80% of your eyes. Like there's so many things in your body that are connective tissue, your intestines, like so much going on that it ends up affecting multi-systemic like issues, right? And so I have lots of different doctors, but whenever I go see a new one and I'm like, I have EDS, they always look at me like, give me that like, but are you though? Right? Because they all want to start with the gaslight, I guess. And then I just look at my skin, right? I don't know if you can see, but I can look at a little cave with it.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah.
And so I show them my little cave and I'm like, look at my little cave. And then they're like, okay, yeah. All right. They don't question me anymore. But like I can also just take my foot and put it up like where I'm sitting, like right now, if without my hands, I could just raise my leg and put it like up here. And that's all I do to show a doctor. I'm just like, look. And then they're okay, never mind. Yeah. You got EDS. All right.
I find as well, like I'm hypermobile, and I didn't know about that until later on in life. But I think it's really important for people to be talking about what it actually is as well. When those for me during pregnancy, when all of those hormones were sort of being released into my body and my ligaments around my pelvis were all sort of getting way more of those hormones, it was so incredibly painful. And I just kept being told that I was a hypochondriac, this is what pregnancy is, and all of those sorts of things. But I remember through each of my pregnancies feeling like my whole pelvis was just made out of chalk, and one wrong move and everything was going to combust. It was just so unbelievably painful at times. And now I know about hypermobility and what it is and what was going on for me back then. I feel sad for my pregnant self that I had no support, and I couldn't even say out loud that I can't walk around a grocery store because it's just too painful. I couldn't say that. I had to do it and sob quietly to myself. I remember bending over. I was quite heavily pregnant, and I had my first daughter. She was in the trolley, and I bent over to get something from one of the bottom shelves in the grocery store, and everything just froze and I could not move. I didn't know what I was going to do. It was so horrible. And if I thought if I stood up that something was going to break, and I think that there needs to be more conversation around that sort of stuff, because it's really isolating when you feel and you have been convinced that you are just some sort of hypochondriac.
Yeah. And I mean, being,
and that's a common experience.
Yeah, I was going to say, being, assigned female at birth or identifying as female, and, being a pregnant person and all these sorts of things. Like, unfortunately, when it comes to the medical profession, it's kind of like, oh, you're being hysterical. It's, you're making this up. It's, oh, you're a woman. You're meant to be in pain, right? And very really invalidating experiences.
Yeah, it was really horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had similar problems. I was not diagnosed EDS back when I had either of my children. And, I ended up with symphysis pubis dysfunction, and they taught me how to pop my pelvis back into place with a broom. But I would have to do that just to go to the bathroom. Like, I was bedridden for weeks, and, I would shuffle out to like a chair on the front porch. Right, it was terrible. And it was during COVID, and I was homeschooling 4 kids from bed, and popping my pelvis into place so I could go to the bathroom. Like, it was just terrible. And honestly, I don't understand why they don't just test children at this point for hypermobility, because you could do that.
It's not hard.
It's not hard. It's not hard. And right. And so definitely a child who has hypermobility is more likely to have all kinds of significant struggles later, because it builds up over time if you're consistently moving your joints beyond a normal range of motion. Then you're going to run into problems.
Yeah, gosh, I feel like we went on a journey with this. It's been good. No, it's really interesting, and but I can kind of see how it all kind of fits together as well. It seems like maybe that's a good place to end. But Rebecca, was there any kind of final thoughts or anything you wanted to plug, like obviously your book or anything else?
So definitely my book, it is out. You can find it on Amazon, anywhere in the world. Just this week I had 3 amazing things happen for the book. The Kirkus Review, it's considered one of the most revered reviews in the entire world. It's the librarian review. They're usually harsh. My book received the Get It distinction in the awards and accolades.
Oh, wow, amazing.
Cool. Yeah. And because of that, it's now available for order through Permabound. I don't know how far they outreach to, but that means that it's available, at least in America, at schools and libraries. And then also right now in NetGalley, the critic review website, it's holding 5 stars after the first 20 critic reviews.
Excellent.
So things are going really great for the book. But also on my website, the educational materials that I put out, that's free. You can go look at it, and you can get an idea of the different conditions, how they affect things, and how they're depicted inside of the book. Because I say that she has invisible disabilities or hidden disabilities, but they're all over the book. It's like on every single page in the artwork. And
what's your website?
Look at that. RebeccaVitzman.com.
Excellent. So I'll link Rebecca's details in the show notes as well, so you can check that out. I think I'll be going to your website and checking out those resources. I think there's a few articles there that I'd be quite interested to.
Yeah. It's I got lots of articles. It'll be it's a good fun time.
Yeah. Tina and I are kind of nerds in that kind of way. So
yeah,
I'm great. Then you'll enjoy my document, and I'm definitely one of those kind of nerds.
Excellent. So yeah, thank you so much, Rebecca, for joining us today. It's been a really great conversation. I think I've learned a few things myself, and I think it's that we've touched on so many things that aren't necessarily really talked about a lot. So I hope that our listeners can get a bit out of this, and maybe go to your website and learn a bit more about it as well. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, amazing. Very interesting.
Yeah, thank you.